Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the majority yield for a question, please?
Mr. Morelli, will you yield?
Yes, of course.
Mr. Morelli yields, Mr. McDonough.
Thank you. I noticed, Mr. Morelli, on page 5 of the resolution, you list all the committees, and I think the purpose there was to show that there is one committee that its name expanded now.
I'm sorry. Oh, the
Page 5?
yes. This is a technical cleanup. Apparently, in the last iteration of the rules, we left off, much to the chagrin of Mr. Schimminger, the words "job creation, commerce, and industry." That simply is a typo to reinstate that.
Reinstated. Okay, I understand that all, but when I want to ask you a question, on the right side of that shows the members of each committee, the number of members, right? Was there any consideration taken into making a balance of that somewhat representative of the balance within the House itself? I mean, some of these are 3 and maybe 4 to 1 majority versus minority members on the committee. Was that taken into consideration at all to have a better balance?
Yes, sir. That's the existing rule, and that's unchanged.
So there's going to be no changes, what you're saying, right?
No, I'm saying it is already proportional to the members of the House, and it is unchanged.
But that wasn't a change you were considering like you considered others, right?
Well, no. I guess what I'm saying is we already do it proportionally, so there was no need to make that change.
Well, proportionally, yes, but not proportionally in ratio to the membership of the House. That's what I'm saying. They're all different. And I'm just saying, was it considered at all to make that, we've asked that in the past, to make the representation in committees somewhat in proportion to the balance of the House, majority versus minority?
Yeah, maybe I'm not understanding the question. Each committee, although it's different in size, proportionally it's the same proportion in each, and it is in proportion to the numbers of the majority versus minority members.
In the committee or in the House? It isn't proportional to the number of majority versus minority members in the House?
Correct, sir.
Really?
Yes, sir.
I better go back and study math a little better because I don't think it's quite that way, sir, but it seems
Well,
to be a little off balance.
I will say I'm a member of the legislature, so math isn't my strong suit. But
Me too. Me too.
no, it is proportional. I think there is an additional adjustment rounding up for majority members, but I'll go back and look. But we did not make any changes
Okay.
to your original question.
Point made. Thank you.
Mr. Johns.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, first of all, on the resolution, I wanted to say that, first of all, I am in support and I'll be voting in support of this resolution. But I can tell you that, let me just give you an example. The newspaper back home where I'm from, the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, the Albany Times-Union, the New York Times, the Daily News, the Post, have all said that these reforms really don't go far enough. And if I had $1 for every time I've heard it's a good first step, I'd probably be a multimillionaire by now. And I think we need to understand that, yes, this is a good first step, but there's a lot of things that need to be done. And the people back home, I know in Western and upstate New York, people want term limits, overall term limits on leadership. They want us to get rid of gerrymandered districts. They want 2-year budget cycles to save tens of millions of dollars. They'd like to talk about real campaign finance reform and other real reforms to the system. And for some reason, those don't come up. They are not items that can come up. It's not going to be a House rule. But we need to bring the bills up for real reform, pass them in this House, and then send them down the hall to the Senate and shame them into doing the right thing. Because rules can change. These rules will go into effect on January 1st. A month later, they may change. We may add some, we may take some away. But the bills that we author for real reform in this House and then send down the hall to the Senate to shame them into doing the right thing are going to do a lot of good for this state and generations when we're long gone to be able to function in a more equitable manner. You know, there's a lot of talk about a constitutional convention next year, or at least allowing the voters to vote on a constitutional convention. That's going to come up in November of 17. The reality is, a lot of the things that we could do one amendment at a time. Term limits, a whole bunch of other things. We allowed the people in this state to vote on gambling. It got 52% of the vote, but it was a constitutional change. And in the area where I'm from, Monroe County, it actually lost. But we put it up as a voter referendum. 90% of the bills that we author in the chamber here, 90% of the bills that we author in the assembly never come up for a vote. We could have a bill, we could have a law in New York State that the voters could go out there and get 50,000 signatures and put any one of our bills up on the ballot and then allow them to vote on those bills that would ultimately become an amendment to our New York State Constitution. And as the majority leader has pointed out on a number of occasions, our New York State Constitution is 4 or 5 times longer than the U.S. Constitution. And we author more bills in this House than they do in the House of Representatives in Washington. So I believe that if we start doing some real reform down here, people back home are going to start taking notice of it. And when we debate these bills that are important to people, they're going to actually tune in and watch us. And I'd appreciate going forward, I'm going to be voting for this resolution, but going forward, hopefully we'll bring up some real reform legislation, and then we'll pass it in both houses and have it become law in New York. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the resolution,
On the resolution, sir.
Mr. Speaker, as has been mentioned, many of the rules changes that are before you today are the result of a long and thoughtful process involving many members of a work group appointed by the Speaker 11 months ago. I just wanted to take a moment to, first of all, thank the Speaker and the members of that work group for a tremendous amount of work that led to these rules changes that we're considering and a number of other recommendations that were announced last year, and just make a few points about what we're doing here today. First of all, it's been noted a few times that the thrust of a lot of what we're doing today is putting lots and lots of material out there for the public in a time frame and in a manner that they don't currently have access to it. We often talk about, people who are critics of this place often talk about it as a place that is secretive, that's hard to find out what's going on. The Speaker of this House and this work group and this majority have proposed to put virtually every aspect of the legislative process out there online as soon as practical as events occur. For those of us who believe that sunshine is the best way both for us to convey to people what we're doing and also for people to have the opportunity to hold us accountable, what we're doing today is a huge step forward. Secondly, we have several changes in these rules that do, as a practical matter, allow bills to be moved through this process because rank-and-file members choose to prioritize them. We've got a provision that allows each member of this House, majority or minority, to propose 5 bills and get an up-and-down vote in committee at a time when it still matters in the legislative process. Some members of the minority have said, well, sometimes those bills will get voted down. Well, Mr. Speaker, I don't think there's a change in the rules that we could make that would prejudge how committees are going to vote on bills. I don't think there's a change in the rules that we could make that would make Democrats vote for Republican bills or Republicans vote for Democratic bills. But what we are doing is making the committees the centerpiece of our legislative process. You have a right to identify a bill, you have a right to get it on an agenda, and it moves forward until members of this House vote it down. That's a very significant change. We've seen, many of us who've been here a long time have a feeling of deja vu in the second year of every session, where we're having debates we had exactly 1 year ago. Sometimes you could almost roll the tape and see the debate again because we're debating a bill we moved last year and we have to do it again. This 2-year process will make our legislative process more efficient. It'll also allow you a 2-year cycle in which to move your bill forward, to convince your colleagues that it's the right thing to do and move it forward. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, a lot of the criticisms and the questions from the minority today about what's not in this package center around what are essentially anti-majoritarian impulses. People are looking, in many cases, are looking for things that would say 76 votes are not enough to do something, or a third of the House can force 2/3 of the House to do something. That's not the way democracy works in any setting. This House is giving each rank-and-file member, irrespective of party, a lot of opportunity, a lot of rights here. We're giving the members a lot of access to information that they don't have in real time now. We're giving the public access to that information. And, provisions that say that if 76 people want to do it, that's not enough, are not the thrust of this. But again, there's a lot that's good here today. And again, I want to thank the Speaker, and I want to thank the 14 members of the work group. I'll spare you all their names. but who really worked very hard on this. And I also want to note that the proposals that the Republicans, that the members of the minority and the other side are talking about today have been in their current form available to us since 2011. They were duly considered, and many of them, all of the minority proposals that have to do with transparency are in our package today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Roth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would Mr. Kavanaugh yield for a quick question?
Mr. Kavanaugh, will you yield?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Kavanaugh yields. Mr. Roth.
Number one, thank you for your work on this package. I think the transparency measures are certainly welcome, especially. But I just had a quick question because you mentioned something about the process with bills on committee, and you mentioned that a bill, basically, if it had the support, would move forward. But my understanding is this doesn't really change the way things are currently done in that it still just says the bill has to be considered. Are you saying that it requires an up or down vote on the bill being reported, or is it still sufficient to just say motion to hold, party line vote, and the bill's killed?
Again, I can't speak to whether the vote is going to be a party line vote. The bill, this package retains our current way of members considering bills in committee. It allows for a motion to hold. So if the members of a committee vote as a majority to hold a bill, then it gets held. If they do not vote, to hold it, and that motion is defeated, then our current rules provide when a motion to hold is defeated that there be a substantive vote on the bill. But again, the members of a committee, I think we all understand when we're voting to hold a bill, that is the opposite of voting it out of committee and moving it forward. What we are doing that is significant, though, is, as I'm sure you know, under our current rules, you can submit a request for a bill to be considered in committee at the very beginning of 2015, and the committee does not need to consider it until the very end of May of 2016. What we're doing today is giving you an opportunity to identify 5 bills in the first year and get that up or down and vote in the first week of May of the first year.
So just so we're clear, the change really then is with regard to timing. It doesn't change how or what a bill being considered actually means. The real substance of it is a change in terms of timing, that you could force that consideration to happen at the beginning of the 2-year cycle rather than perhaps not until June of the second year.
It's actually technically it's the difference between the first week of May of the first year and the third week of May of the second year. It's 54 weeks earlier, and it is at a time when the bill still has a meaningful chance of passing this House if it is voted out of that committee. It is very difficult late in May of the second year, as you know, to move a bill even if a committee approves it. So we're giving people the right to have that done in the first year with respect to 5 of their priority bills, and in addition, we're moving the time in the second year to an earlier part in the session, so those unlimited requests for committee consideration that you all enjoy will have more meaning.
Okay. And one last question with regard to that. So if I used one of my 5 opportunities, because I believe it's 1 per committee, right? So I used that on, the health committee, and should the bill get reported, could I use that, say, on then Ways and Means or Codes for that same bill?
No, yes, it's actually, you have the opportunity to use these requests on 5 bills. So if a bill, this is under our current rules as well, if a bill is voted out of committee pursuant to a request for committee consideration, it is then in order to put in a request for the subsequent committee. If it's referred to Codes, you can put it for Codes. You're not asked to save your first year request for committee consideration in case it gets out. You can identify 5 bills, and each of those bills, if they get out of the initial committee, it'll then be in order to submit a request to a subsequent committee.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Kavanaugh.
Sure.
Quickly on the resolution.
On the resolution, Mr. Roth.
I think there's some good things here. I did just want to point that out, that really the committee part of it, well, at first reading, sounded pretty good, really changes the timing more so than, in my opinion, it's going to change whether a bill gets a fair shake from the minority side in the committee process. But I'm certainly appreciative of the work of Mr. Kavanaugh and all the members who served on this commission or committee or whatever it officially was. And I hope that, in particular, transparency measures and some of these other measures will make us
a more open, transparent House and empower the rank and file to have an active role in policymaking. Thank you.
Mr. Tedesco?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the resolution,
On the resolution, Mr. Tedesco.
Bob Woodward, from Watergate fame, once said that the worst thing we have to fear as Americans is secret government, that in darkness, democracy dies. Where this resolution emanated from over a year is from a caucus and the members on the other side of the aisle. And it is minimalistic in nature, but it's worse than that. It's not transformative, and it's not really leading to the transparency we need in this government to deal with the ethics violations and the corruption we've seen in the past. And I think the best way to define what you've accomplished here is that you've opened up the curtains and you've left the shade down. So what you've done is create some beautiful window dressing, but nothing that's going to create the transparency necessary to transform this body into something that the taxpayers, the public watching us, the media, and many of us who want to see something and say something that's inappropriate can relate to. The fact of the matter is, when you talk about a majority, and I guess this is the definition, and I think Thomas Jefferson and our founding fathers would totally disagree with you. I think their definition of what a majority is are the governing body of which a majority, who represent a majority of the public, which is the 19.5 million people of New York State, agree that they want legislation to come to the floor and have a discussion, a debate, and a vote. I think that's what they would define a majority. What you define it as right now, via the leader of this House, and I guess you agree with that, is if 75 members on your side of the aisle want a bill to come to the floor, and all 40 or 41 of us on this side agree with you, we want a bill to come to the floor, that's 115 to 116 members of this 150-member body. That's not a majority, even though it represents close to 2/3 or more of the population of New York State. I think our founding fathers would disagree with you. I know you control the majority. I know you have over 100 members. I know 76 passes a bill. But I think collegially, if we were to work together, and I'm not saying it's ever going to happen, that we do have an agreement with 75 members of yours, that means the bill doesn't come to the floor because even 41 of us who agree with you, you can't get that one other guy or gal on your side of the aisle to agree with it? That's really not what the public, I think, sees as a majority or really working as a representative democracy. And the other part of this bill, you've got a nice, shiny new website. But you don't put on that nice, shiny new website all the discretionary funding that's going to be in the budget coming up. Dick Dady from Citizens Union pointed out 8 pockets of money, close to $1.5 billion of discretionary funds. Why isn't that going to be on the website? With an understanding of where the money is really going to go, people signing affidavits about no quid pro quo in relationship to this money. Because if you don't, it's only in the best interest, not only of us. So, as Preet Bharara says, we can see something and say something. We can take some of that unbridled power away from the leadership and disperse it, not stop them from leading, but disperse it and be real representatives. But it's in the best interest of the leaders here. So they're not tempted to game the system. And so everything is above board, and everything has clarity for us, for the taxpayers of New York State, and for the media, the fourth estate, which should be able to weigh in on where we use taxpayers' dollars. Leaders should not have access to a piggy bank, and we've got to break that and create some transparency there. We've got to have some magnification of where this money is going, and the best way to do that is, I think, support a truth in spending law, which says if you want to put $400 million into a slush fund or a pocket of money, you can't make it your own little piggy bank. You have to show the world including the most important part of this representative democracy, the taxpayers of New York State, where their money is going to be spent. And that doesn't happen with this resolution, and it doesn't happen with any of the rules changes I saw. And basically, you turn the curtain open, but you left the shade down. And I think Bob Woodward would be disappointed, and I think he would say, you tinkered around the edges, but you created more darkness in our democracy. And that's not what we're here to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
On the resolution, the clerk will record the vote. Are there any other votes? Announce the results.
Ayes 128, noes 3.
The resolution is adopted. Mr. Morelli.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, do you have any other resolutions to take up at this time?
We have numerous resolutions. We'll take them up in one vote. All those in favor of the resolutions, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The resolutions are adopted. Mr. Morelli?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I now move that the Assembly stand adjourned until 2 p.m., Tuesday, March 22nd, tomorrow being a session day.
The Assembly stands adjourned.